Okay, so this is the Bible study for Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 14. It says, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses, who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. Aaron answered them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me. So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they had handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord. So the next day, the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterwards, they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. Then the Lord said to Moses, go down because your people whom you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it and have said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. I have seen these people, the Lord said to Moses, and they are stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation. But Moses sought the favor of the Lord, his God. Lord, he said, why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out, to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, I will make your descendants numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever. Then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had. Okay, so remember that you can download PDF copies of this Bible study at www.abqnaz.org/alive so that you can follow along with us and as we ask questions and answer them about this text. So number one in our Bible study says, what did we talk about in last week's Bible study? More items for the tabernacle and rituals. That's true, although maybe a oversimplification and not recognizing the importance of those things. At least it seems like it in the tone. B, purification, ransom offerings, worship, and anointing, and all those are true. C, God chose, gifted, and filled with his spirit artisans that would make things for the glory of God. That's true. And now we're getting into something that may be more significant to us and easier for us to process and try to apply to our lives. And then D, God reminded his people to observe the Sabbath and kind of says, hey, I did this and now you do that. Now it's a sign between us that we kind of do the same thing. And of course, we know that it's for our good to observe Sabbath, to stop, to rest from our work in order to make sure our focus is proper in our life and our focus remains on God and we're properly rested. Number two, what happens now in 32:1? It says, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down, they gathered around Aaron and said, come make us gods who will go before us. So A says, I'm sure that the Israelites were waiting with bated breath to hear the words of God from Moses. Well, don't we wish that was true? Actually, if you thought the last few chapters were really long, imagine what the Israelites felt. They thought Moses, after all this time of talking with God, Moses must have disappeared. They said, we don't know what happened to this fellow Moses. B says, well, when Moses took a long time, they came up with other plans. Um, and so, yeah, so Moses is gone hearing from God about them and about all this great stuff and the important stuff about how they're going to worship him and fulfill the commitment that they've already made to God and all of this. And then it turns out they're like, well, we don't know where he went. Let's just find other gods. C, the people asked Aaron to make them gods to go before us because they didn't know what had happened to Moses. So they understood that they needed a God to go before them, but they were content with making their own. And they've seen miracles, but all those miracles have come through Moses. And so Moses is sort of the messenger, the prophet, if you will, declaring who God is. And when Moses is gone, they say, well, we don't know about Moses, what happened to him and his God. So Aaron, why don't you make us some other gods? And of course, Aaron's Moses's brother. It seems like he could be more worried about where Moses went as well. But he decides to do, he's seen how difficult these Israelites can be when they're upset. And he wants to be on their good side. So he goes ahead and he does what they ask. Number 3 says, how did Aaron respond according to 32:2-6? A, he corrected them and reminded them of the power of the one true God. Don't we wish that was the truth? Don't we wish that's what he did? Because that's what needed to be done. That's what we would hope a godly leader would do for us in that situation. But that's not what he did. Instead, he just went along with their idea. B, he told them about the importance of waiting on the Lord and not moving forward without him. Like Moses was big on that. He said, God, we're not going forward unless you go with us. But no, Aaron's going to go forward with whoever. So we learn a lot about Aaron and the character and the courage or lack thereof that he has in leadership here. See, he reminded them of their covenant and how they affirmed that they would remain in covenant with God, which included not making images of gods who had no breath and were not gods and were made by men. Don't we wish that's what he did? No, he didn't do that. D, he told them to bring all of their gold earrings and jewelry, and he made them an idol in the shape of a calf and declared, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. It's a revisionist history even. Not only are they making gods, but they're saying, this is who those gods are. You seem to need a physical representation. I mean, maybe Aaron somehow justified himself and said, we're still worshiping the God that brought us out of Egypt. Does it really matter that it's not, that this is not him, that he doesn't really have the shape of a calf? This is just a representation of the God that brought us out of Egypt, right? But no, they were worshiping something other than that which brought them out of Egypt. The one that brought them out of Egypt told them not to make gods made by human hands in the image of animals and of people. He built an altar in front of the calf and declared a festival, and the people all sacrificed burnt offerings to the calf and had a party. And that's true. All that, those last 2 things are true, and the other 3 are the things that we wish had happened. Number 4, what did God say to Moses? So God knows what's going on down there, even if Moses doesn't. What did God say to Moses in 32:7-8? A, go down because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt. Whoa, this sounds like a marital fight. All of a sudden, wait, Moses is like, dude, I only did this because you said. Like, well, when did they become my people that I brought out? I thought they were your people who you brought out. But God's pretty upset. When God's pretty upset, he's not owning them right now. He's not claiming them. He's not saying they're his, because by the way, He said, this is follow my commands. If you obey me fully, then I will be your God and you will be my people. Now they're not obeying him. They're worshiping other gods. And he said, they're not my people. And we need to understand that as much as God loves us, as much as God hears our cries and our prayers, as much as he created us and he loves us and he pursues us, if we decide to worship other gods, if we decide to do it our own way, we're the ones that are saying we're not your people. And so when God looks at us, he says, that's not my people. That's not Moses. These must be your people, because my people don't act like that. My people don't do these things. They promised me they wouldn't. And I wonder sometimes, are we his people? Is it clear we proclaim to be his people, but is it clear that we're his people? Are we in covenant relationship? Are we following through in faithfulness with the covenant he has made with us? B, they've been quick to turn away from what I've commanded them and have made themselves an idol. So God tells them what's going on. And then C, I have seen these people and they are a stiff-necked people. And Moses has seen them too, and he knows that, right? And so, you think he's not going to disagree. But then God says, leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation. He says, just go away, leave me alone. I'm upset and I'm going to destroy them. But don't worry, you're the one here talking to me. You didn't do it. I'm going to make you into a great nation. I need more people like you. Now, for most of us, that would be what we wanted to hear. And we'd be like, yeah, make me in it. Yes, okay, take your time, do what you need to do with these guys. I don't like them anyway. They've been giving me problems too. They've been blaming me for stuff you did, and now they're not even acknowledging you at all. I don't know. I'm with it, God. You do what you want to do. But that's not what Moses did. So number 5 says, how did Moses respond to God in 32:11 through 14? A, Moses agreed. He was probably frustrated with them too at this point. Finally, God saw it his way. That's what we think. That's what we would have done. But B, Moses pled for mercy for the people. So Moses starts speaking, interceding on behalf of the people who God is angry at. See, Moses pointed out that the Egyptians would not understand the reason for this and would misinterpret it in a way that would reflect poorly on God, instead of understanding that this reflected on these people's disobedience against God. So that he says, Egypt will say that you did this with ill intent, that you brought them out on purpose to kill them. And they won't recognize that you are the God that you are if you do it this way. So you please have mercy on them. Don't do this. Give them another chance. Moses reminded God of the faithfulness of the ancestors of these people. He says, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you don't see anything in these guys, remember that there was somebody that came before them that spoke to you and recognized you and followed you. And have mercy on them, if not for their behalf, but because of their fathers. So number 6 says, how do you speak to God? And I'll be honest, it is hard to intercede for people who have been mean to you or who have been hard on you or made your life hard. I'm fortunate. I think some pastors would list long lists of people that have made their life hard. I feel like I've been blessed to have a wonderful church, and don't have a long list, but there are certainly people that have made my life hard. And sometimes praying and interceding for them is the hardest thing. Honestly, it's the thing I need to do most. Those are the people that need God's intervention more than anybody else. And I need to, and so I do. but it is not a human natural tendency to do so. We have to overcome a lot of our fleshly temptations in order to intercede for somebody who has been mean to us, who have been hard on us, made our life hard. The second part says, are there people who you are willing to intercede for and represent before God the way Moses did? So do you bring names and faces and situations before God the way Moses does? Do you try to change the mind of God about them? Think about this. Moses didn't say, God, whatever you want. And I know we learned to pray that with Jesus, what not my will, but yours. But honestly, Moses is not saying not my will, but yours. He's saying, God, change your will, change your mind. I see why you want to do this, but be consistent with your own nature, really. Forgive, love, um, have grace for them, initiate restoration for them. Don't destroy them. And then the third part here says, is it possible to have a heart for people who have also criticized or turned against you the way Moses did? And it's possible, but not in our own strength. It's only possible in the power of God. And the question is, are you interceding for people in your life? Are you changing the mind of God? Are you begging for mercy for people in your life, even if they have wronged you, even if they've criticized you? We should, and we see something in Moses that we should emulate and follow. And honestly, I believe that God wanted to show us this, because I actually think what Moses is doing here is the heart of God. And I believe God wanted his people. Imagine this, think about this, think about it this way. What if Moses had been complaining about these people constantly ever since they left Egypt? God, I can't believe you're making me lead these people. And then God, in this moment, uses Moses's own words back to him. Now, we don't have record of any of that, but God says, okay, you're right. You wanted to kill him. You were tired of him. I'm going to do what you ask. And all of a sudden, Moses felt the weight of his prayers and said, no, God, your heart of love, your heart of mercy, that's what I want to have. And I wonder if sometimes God doesn't allow these situations in our lives so that we become the one begging for mercy for them. And we don't know what God was really going to do with Israel at that moment. But maybe God did all of this so that Moses came to a place where he loved his people. And I think in our lives as pastors, sometimes God shows us something in the people that have been so hard on us, and we end up begging for mercy for them and interceding on their behalf, because we finally see what God has been seeing all along when we were complaining. And I think about it this way. I was the hardest one on my sister growing up. Sometimes I couldn't stand her. But the moment somebody else was going to pick on her, no, that I was her protector. And sometimes that's the way we are as humans. And Moses might have been the hardest on his people, but the moment God was saying, I'm done with this, Moses was the one that came to their defense and cried out for them. And I think we should be that. And maybe that moment is when we actually experience and hear the heart of God.